Now, a Spanish artist named Salvador Dali once said, "A true artist is not a man who's inspired, but rather a man who chooses to inspire others." Hi there, my name is Luvuyo Pelu, and this is Artist Talk. Now, our guest today is Farook Mohammed, a man with his roots firmly set in Gqeberha, but has this amazing global appeal, which only makes sense that we meet him here at the Mantis No5 Hotel, a true embodiment of luxury and beauty of the friendly city. Come through, let's go meet him. Thank you so much for pressing play. My name is Luvuyo Pelu. This is Artist Talk, and today I am honored because I am joined by a man who's pioneering a movement like no other, fusing two cultures that belong to him and making them become one. We're coming from Mantis No5 Hotel, which is a place I like to describe as the pure epitome of the spirit of Gqeberha, the luxurious side and the beauty of the friendly city. Farook, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really honored about this because it's not every day I get to, have drinks and the audience of a pan-African genius like yourself.
Well, I wouldn't say just genius, but I use art the way it's supposed to be. Art as a form is meant to evoke emotion, so I use the power of art to achieve certain goals that I have. And as we know, the world is the way it is, and we want to see it in a better space. So I'm merging creativity with everything.
Just how you speak about art, I mean, one can really pick up that it's something that's really close to your heart. So just tell us a bit about your artistic background. How did it start, and what really inspired you?
To delve into that, it started with my childhood, since forever. I used to play on my mother's lap, and she would read out of books and encyclopedias, and the house is always full of artworks and stuff like that. So I've always been surrounded by it, and I've also been painting and drawing and all of these things as a child. So I practically grew up with it. For quite some time into my young adulthood, art was mainly a hobby in the beginning, before going into it full-time. But I've known all these years that art is a very, very powerful medium, especially when it comes to matters of politics, when it comes to social issues. There is a message. It has the ability to have an effect on society and stuff like that. So I took that as something where I can actually add my bit to try and better the world that we're living in. Because I mean, like in South Africa, we've got this rich history, collective history of a diversity of cultures and nations and people. And I combine our beautiful cultures, in its diversity as one, because that's also tied within my own family bloodline and my history, which dots the entire continent of Africa, all the way up into the Arabian Peninsula and even Europe. So it's a whole coming together of different nations. So that's practically who I am. And when I look at the world and I see conflict and I see where people are not seeing eye to eye, for me it's like I can't choose sides with anyone.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's like when I look at the world, it's more like
a tug of war.
the tug of war, it's a family fight, man.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm stuck in the middle, I'm like, I can't choose sides
Your
between
two
anyone.
favorite aunts are going at it. And
Yeah,
like,
so-
I'm not saying anything.
So for me, it's about reaching to the masses to say, here's an opportunity to reflect and look back at where we are as human beings. I mean, like, we've got this whole history of our past, right, from ancient times right up until now. And I believe that we've come to this point so far with technology, with everything, that we've reached a point where nations are like very close to nuclear fallout, World War III type of scenario where it could mean the end of our planet. And at the same time, I actually see light at the end of the tunnel where I can say, okay, but we can prevent these things. We can put an end to it if we make an effort. And here's a powerful tool to just achieve, to be able to achieve that type of goal, because even like Nelson Mandela, he recognized the power of art, where he said, like, artists have the ability to reach places that politicians cannot. And it's true. If you look at many of the countries where people have toppled governments, it was actually the creatives that stood up against, authority and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that this is what I'm doing, I'm standing up against authority. My thing is, I'm being the referee. I'm putting myself in the middle and saying, as humanity collectively, all of us human beings, we've reached this point in time. Where do we want to see the world in terms of its development? Where are we heading? We want to have futuristic cities. We want to see everyone having a nice life, living perfectly. We want to focus on, nature, making sure that we don't mess up this beautiful planet that we've got. So apart from capturing the beauty of nature around us, artists do have a moral responsibility to make sure that the world is actually heading in the right place. Pardon me. If we go back in history, and let's say we're talking about conflict, World War I, World War II, during that time, artists were actually abused and used by the powers that be, governments, to
push their message.
To push their message for propaganda purposes. And we're living in a world where nobody is actually falling for propaganda nonsense anymore. I don't think a single person on the face of this earth wants to fight with another person living on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
We all are living on this beautiful round ball, and we've got a lot in common. We are all human beings. We've got families. We've got everything. There is no, what can I say, like certain ideologies talking about the pure race.
Yeah.
The only pure race that there is the human race. We are all one people. From
cool.
Africa all the way into every other part of the world. And yes, I will mention Africa because we're from Africa. We are Africans. I am an African.
Now,
and
I like that you mentioned that there is no pure race.
Yeah.
The only pure race is the human race.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to you, because you are a mixed bag. I like to call you like the human cocktail, if you will.
I don't even see myself as a human cocktail. And it's because we've managed to put these barriers and imaginary boundaries around ourselves. We've boxed ourselves and limited ourselves to saying, oh, I am this nation, I am that race, I am this thing, and I'm that thing. But we actually have no differences. When it comes down to the core of being a human being, down to our genetics, nothing brings any difference to us. The only difference is that we're sitting on a different location.
Yeah.
You're on one side of the world, another one's on the other side of the world, and we've got tribalism and all of these things. It's useless. And when we talk about futuristic things, we always, what comes to mind in the human psyche, that when we talk about the future, way ahead into the future, we envision flying cars and all of these things. We are basically there.
Yeah.
We've got drone tech.
Very true.
My man, drone technology is the main thing for flying cars. And I don't think people are going to focus that much in terms of investment into things in, let's say, self-driving cars on the road. But the biggest investment is going to happen towards drone technology and having the aviation type of technology where it can actually fly you to whichever destination you need with just the press of the button. So obviously all of that nitty-gritties needs to be sorted out, but I think that's the next phase for us. Getting there, artists also play a role. We play a role in every single industry, from the insurance industry to hotels to
but I mean, art is
it's everywhere.
Our entire lives.
Yeah.
I mean, even if we look at from our cell phones, those little icons that represent each app are literally little works of art.
It is little works of art. Even our money.
Yeah, even our money is works of art.
It's little works of art.
The things that we use to get the things we want are literal pieces of art.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that also brings me to my next question of, to you, when did it click that, wait a minute, I'm actually an artist? Because I think every creative has that point or that occurrence or that thing that happens where it's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm a musician or I'm a painter or a sculptor. When was that moment for you?
I think it clicked from the word go as a child. I'm born creative, so I don't have a problem. It's not, art is something that you can learn.
Yeah.
You can be taught to do this, to do that. I've been able to perfectly sketch cities and buildings since the word go. My memory is so good that I actually can remember the first time I wrote my name, as a child, and who showed me how to form the first letter. I have those memories, but it's always been within me. And having had art and stuff around me within the household and in books and whatever, because tons of encyclopedias and most of it is in here. And I'm specifically talking about the old encyclopedias because they've got a lot of images and photos and stuff like that.
Some of us are even too young to be familiar with encyclopedias. We will just Google it.
Yeah, but I grew up with books. I love books. I still have a whole set of books. I always renew things. I always explore things because there's always something new to learn. Although I believe that my mind is like way vast. It's got a lot of things in there.
Yeah.
But I believe there's always something new for me to add on to it. There's always new perspectives or ways to look at things from a different side. But I've always been creative. It clicked from the word go. I've always wanted to be in the space of, the art world.
Yeah. Now, speaking of growing up, I mean, I did say in my intro that you do have your roots here in Gqeberha. And as much as PE is famous for a lot of things, it's so rich in art, but it's never been seen as like a Paris or in New York where, or like what Milan is to fashion. So how was it maneuvering that space as a brand new artist and finding your voice as an artist growing up? How did you sort of maneuver that and find yourself?
Well, for me, if I look at the world is a small place. You don't need to be in any other part of the world or a certain city where the hype is being generated by media outlets, etc., etc. Like I've said to some people where I've had other interviews and spoken to them, like people that I've had interviews with, that's from New York and other places, and it was like online, and we were chatting, and the reality is you don't need to be somewhere else. We've got technology in these days where we instantly connect with people, and to reach wherever you want to reach, you can either pick up a phone, you can reach whichever individual. If you need to get to a certain art collector, you pick up the phone or they call you.
Yeah.
It's no longer where it's a thing about gatekeepers. Because I mean, like, why do you need gatekeepers in between men when people have the ability to reach each other just like that?
Especially with the internet now. I mean, I think the gatekeeping era died as soon as the internet found its space in the world and became so much more accessible, because those people were called curators. They're essentially the gatekeepers because they are the ones who had the power to say, Farook, you're good enough, I'll showcase your work and I'll expose you.
Yeah.
Or, I don't like you, therefore you don't get the space.
Yeah. So, like I said, we find the world in the situation that it is at times with nations not seeing eye to eye. So that's why I'm going to jump back to that. Where I overlook the middlemen. I don't say they don't have a space and a place within the industry. They certainly do. But we have issues, right? And I, as an artist, I have a mission. I have this thing where I want to bring nations together. Now you will find people that are biased. You will find people that will overlook you as an artist, or they won't see you as a person based on certain prejudices and whatever they might have. He's from Africa, I don't care about it.
Yeah.
You know, that type of thing. Or you're not white enough, or you're not black enough, or you're not yellow enough or green enough, those type of things.
You don't fit the desired box.
Yeah, so you reach out to people, a lot of artists, they reach out to these institutions out there and they get sidelined. I'll rather put this other person because of race or because of whatever. So because of those reasons, just go around them. Go to the client that they think is their main client, queen so-and-so, king so-and-so, billionaire so-and-so. Mind you, my stuff is being sold like that, directly.
Yeah.
But I'm not cancelling people out. If there's middlemen, they can work with me. It's up to the individual out there. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to push a certain message. The world needs to come together. We need to stop seeing the differences between each other. And I'm using this concept that we've got in Africa, Ubuntu.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
which is humanness, humility, brotherhood. You know, it's about connecting. But it's not just Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the African word amongst our black African population. The Arabic word for that is Ukhwa. Ukhwa, which is the same thing. So it's the concept of brotherhood and unity. And if we look at Africa, over many years, whenever people talk about Africa, we only get one image that's always put into people's minds. It's like people are living in huts, there's lions and whatever else.
There is a fly somewhere.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're watching this from somewhere else in the world, you see, not every, oh no, there are really not that many flies.
We don't have that many flies.
We don't have that many flies. And I think that actually also brings me to the movement that you're pioneering.
Yeah.
The AfroRavian Empire. Tell us more about that.
So that was actually what I was going to get to. It's like, you know, why I'm calling it AfroRavian Empire is because when we look at Africa, we've got the north and we've got the south.
Yeah.
And it's about merging this whole continent. And like I said, when people talk about Africa, they only put one mindset or one thought. The north is, most of the time you find that people are excluding the north, but it's part of the whole African continent, you know. And then when people are talking about that side of the world, that's not what they call the Middle East.
Yeah.
It's Africa. And it's a whole chunk. It's like massive. And that's part of the whole African continent. And my focus is on bringing this unity for the whole African continent, for all of our people to benefit. We are one people.
We really are one people. I mean, I can only imagine your frustration when the World Cup and the whole argument between Morocco.
It was ridiculous, man. It's like, so what?
Do you not have a map?
Do you not have a map? They're African, but there is no difference. You can be an African and an Arab at the same time. Just like you know, I mean, like, what's the difference between a Xhosa and a Zulu? They're both African. You know, it's just different tribes. Yeah. But it's still the same African people.
They are still African.
They are still African. Or between a Khoisan and you know, any other African people like in Uganda or Zambia or whatever. What's the difference? We're all still African. Location. That's the only thing. And that's the only difference. An Arab versus a Xhosa versus a Zulu. It's just different tribes, basically, if you look at it in that sense. But we're all in Africa. And mind you, historically, what we've retermed as the Middle East, the Arabian Peninsula, was considered part of Africa historically, because, I mean, like, when you really do go into our history, it's one place. It's just that we found ourselves being divided into a whole bunch of stuff. And look at it. Here's an artist trying to bring it all together and saying, this is what happened in the past, and this brought us a lot of problems, and here I am, and I'm trying to motivate my people. collectively. Let's come together, and it's about showing the rest of the world this is how we're going to come together.
Yeah.
You're welcome to join the party and unite.
And I think that also leads me to my next question, because I was going to ask, what are some of the things that you are really trying to say with your art, Because art, at the end of the day, as much as it is meant to be aesthetically pleasing, it's also meant to pass a message. It's also meant to spark conversations and, as you've said before, make a difference.
Well, if I look at the artworks that I've made, so there's this particular one that I call The Story of Lovebirds. And it's got this African woman, it's got an Arab man, two of them are married, she's heavily pregnant. But within that image, it captures so much of the African continent.
Yeah.
There's parts of, the Khoisan people in there. There's parts of Europe in there, where settlers came to Africa. But they've detached themselves from Europe when they moved here. They call themselves Afrikaners, which means African. And if we go into history, even the language Afrikaans itself was written first in Arabic script.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So that's also part of our history and our culture. And for me, it's like, let's not sweep the good stuff away under the rug. Let's revive all of these things, because there are competitions here in South Africa where they have translations of Afrikaans that's actually written in the Arabic script into English and whatever else, because we still have the old books.
Yeah.
It's still in existence. So if I look at the message behind it, I'm bringing this message of unity. I'm bringing this message of brotherhood. My thing is, yes, acknowledge the past, because whenever we refer to the past, for most people, the past is painful. It has a lot of pain. It has a lot of hurt. There's times of war, colonialism, slavery, the slave era, all of those things. But at certain points in time, everyone forefather was a slave, was a king at one point too. Both sides. And every side, So when it comes to the past, let's acknowledge the past, but let's not use the past to determine the future. So my goal is to say, let's acknowledge the past, but we are right here now. At this very moment, we have the ability to change things from the get-go. And yes, we find ourselves in a situation where nations are not seeing eye to eye. I'm not saying it's happening here in Africa.
Yeah.
But Africa is currently being used as, this middle ground. And everyone's flooding in with their politicians to try and sway Africans this way, that way. And we're saying, what's the main theme in Africa currently? We're not choosing sides between East and West. It's for us, it's more or less, guys, just come together. It's as simple as that. Come to a point where we agree for one thing. We're at this moment, let's focus on the world we want to see. Let's start structuring things in terms of our economic structure. I advocate and promote, and I'm big on promoting a circular economy. That's my ultimate thing, because a circular economy connects all the different industries in a nice way that involves, sustainable development and all of those things. We need to focus on revitalizing our cities and, building new places. And creatives connect with that. So when people are coming up with new buildings, you need artists, you need people with creative minds to structure the new future of the world. We mustn't think of the future as in some distant planetary place somewhere far out on the other side of the galaxy. We've got our own little tiny ball that we live on over here. And having visions of grand cities on another planet, why don't we have it here? We've got all the technology, we've got everything that we need right now in this time. It's about people working together to achieve that. And if we don't work together, we're just going to destroy everything. And our duty as artists, and it's not just myself, I'm actually trying to reach out to other artists and say, listen, move onto the path of saying, promote global unity. Get people to come together. Let people stop seeing differences. Because There's no
push
need for
ukwa.
it. Let's push Ukwa, Ubuntu.
Yeah.
Let's bring people together and use our creativity. Bring cultures together. People that don't see eye to eye, smack them together on a painting.
Let's use the gifts
In
that
a
we have
beautiful
as
way, instead of smacking them together in a painting where there's a battlefield scene, put them together in a nice way where they're
Show
embracing
them
each
the
other.
alternative.
Yeah, we're embracing each other.
Yeah. But you know, that also takes me, I think I want to dive into the technicalities of the art, because I'm
Yes.
pretty new to the art space. So I want to know the mediums you use. Which mediums do you use, and what makes you use those, you know? Just explain the technical side of the art.
If I jump into the mediums, there's a variety of things that I do use.
Yeah.
Obviously, I paint and I sketch when it's acrylic. There's oil painting sometimes that I do. Sometimes it's a combination of the two. Sometimes when it's drawings, it could be pencil, then it's pen, then it's combinations of that even. At times, I would use nature itself to assist the creative process, like the sun. I can use the sun in the creative process. Use that, harnessing the energy of the sun to put some power into to a new creative piece. And I use water, I use different elements. So I bring all of these things together just to let it form. And sometimes I let some stuff breathe new life into itself. Depending on the type of materials that you use, you can play around as a creative. But my focus is always on how long can this last.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like it needs a lifespan that goes and goes and goes, because at the end of the day, I'm creating art of the future.
Yeah.
This is not for just for now. I'm making it now, but for the future. So that it can remain as something for people to look forward to going many, many years in, so that when we do, I believe that I will be successful in achieving this goal that I have of unifying people and getting that message out, in inspiring people and motivating people to work together. I strongly believe that I will achieve that goal. But now it's after achieving that, the art is there, the works are there. Let's say I'm long gone.
Yeah.
It needs to inspire the next generations. So I've planned ahead for this thing.
You planned. Speaking of planning ahead, I love that you ended. I love that you ended your sentence with that. I want to know about the exhibition that's coming up soon.
Okay, the exhibition that's coming up soon, it's called How It's Done, Art That Changes the World, and it will be at the tramways. We're having it at the tramways from the 27th up until the 6th. That's when it's going to happen, and obviously we're having a nice opening night, grand vibe.
I can't wait. Dress up.
Yeah, we're having a grand vibe for that. It's a world-class venue, so
Yeah.
in Gqeberha, our city. So I'm actually looking forward to that whole vibe that's gonna be there. Interested to see how people will receive the works when they actually see it, because most of the works that will be up, it's stuff that's never been seen before. Unlike the other stuff that I've put out there, it's new. So I'm actually curious to how it will be received by the public, and that type of thing.
Yeah. I think that's going to be very exciting. I'm looking forward to it. Besides the exhibition, is there anything else that we can expect from Farook Mohammed, as well as the AfroRavian Empire for the rest of 2023?
Well, I've been setting up collaborations with different institutions, organizations across Africa, and the more the merrier. There's more space, we can welcome more people. And the aim is to have a continental art exhibition later the year, around September, but we will get more into detail about that much later. We're just refining things so that we can actually have this as an online exhibition and get some of the best artists from different parts of Africa and just make one massive continental pan-Africanist exhibition and have a blast with it and make it a major success. As an artist, I don't just see myself as me. It's always about everyone else out there. I like to promote the diversity and creativity that you find on the continent. So I don't like to stand just as myself on a podium with, oh, Farouk, this guy
Yeah.
pulled all of these things off. No, it's not just me. As a collective, we get further. As a people, if that's why I said I want all artists to start moving towards promoting works that speak about unity instead of just focusing on our pain. Like I said, we can acknowledge the past, but for this generation, can we not just pick up and start moving forward with
And designing the future.
design the future, man? That's where we need to be. Design that
Designing the
future.
future.
We need that.
Farouk, thank you so much for chatting to us. It's been
It's
an
a pleasure.
absolute pleasure. I mean, it's not every day we get a chance to have an audience with a multi-award winning artist. Thank you so much. I
a
really do
pleasure.
hope that the artwork and the movement reaches the entire world, and maybe even if we ever come into contact with aliens, even beyond Earth.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for joining us.
it's a pleasure. Thank you.
And that's how we wrap things up here on Artist Talk. Be sure to look out for the next video. And also don't forget to search up AfroRavian Empire all over social media to keep up with the movements.